And I am particularly excited to have Edie Fraser as my guest. I'm so excited about this. Normally what we do for CEO Chick Chat is we conduct a pre-interview. Well, if anybody's known Edie, she's an extraordinarily magical person. When Edie's in the room, it's like a bumblebee. It's like trying to capture a bumblebee who's magical. And I'd have her for a second and somebody sees her and grabs her and off she goes. So I think it's going to be a fascinating, intriguing interview. Her life story is compelling. And the purpose of CEO Chick Chat is to kind of go on that journey with a woman to understand that all of our journeys are a little bit different, but there's something common in that language too. So I think it's going to be fascinating. So good morning, Edie. Welcome to CEO Chick Chat.
Well, good morning, Cynthia, and one, thank you. And thank you to Pillsbury, and to thank each of you, because I've seen in Success of the City women a special spirit.
It is an amazing group of women, but you are an amazing woman upon yourself. So let's go back to the very beginning. Where were you born?
I was born in New York City, but at that point is my mom and dad met at Macy's when they were both buyers, and we basically moved to Atlanta when I was 5.
From Macy's? Was Macy's sent you down there?
Yes, it sent my dad down there in the early days, and my dad had an entrepreneurial spirit with my mom, and they started Casual Corner. And about 3 years later, after they joined Atlanta with part of Macy's.
Really? So Casual Corner, so you grew up with Casual Corner being part of your life experience?
I did, but of course I wasn't interested in clothes like everybody else in my family is that had the opportunity, but it really did teach me the entrepreneurial spirit, and it taught me also very hard work. If anybody's ever worked in retail, you know, being on your feet for 12 hours a day and making certain customer first, customer served, but it teaches you a great deal.
I imagine, well, I think you're an icon dresser in Washington, D.C. Every time I see you, you're always impeccably dressed. So I think that certainly that experience in your family impacted your taste and your style. Would you not agree with that?
Thanks. I think it really does, and it's fun because I have a lot of friends that also are in fashion, is Kay Unger, is Josie Notori, is basically a lot of my friends through the Committee of 200 have been some of the major designers, so it's fun to really get to know them. But it's basically, I think everyone here looks great, as well as you, but it's just comes naturally. It's certainly not my first priority. In fact, I remember on a panel one day with very top women, and is 3 of us, and this was basically those doing over $1 million or $10 million in their businesses, and they said, and what do you do that you do with your money? And the first woman said, I love diamonds. I buy lots of diamonds. And the second woman said, I buy the most expensive shoes. And they said, and Edie, what do you do? And I said, I buy on eBay so I can give back to women and other causes, which I think caused a lot of riot in the room. But it's true.
So you buy on eBay and it contributes to causes? Is there a certain...
Oh, no, you can buy on eBay and it can give back a certain amount. But I really believe in the whole concept of tithing and giving, so that making sure, and clearly everybody has to set their priorities and the focus of what you can do and what you can't do in terms of money and time, but it's very important.
And I think that's something we're going to talk about a little bit, about what you do and your giving and gifting, because you certainly are one of the most important contributors here in Washington, D.C., and you're well known for that. Let's go back to when you were growing up in Atlanta. Here's a little girl from New York, but you're 5, so you're kind of young. So what did you see yourself doing when you grew up? What was that vision that you saw for yourself?
I'm not sure you have a lot of vision at youth, but being a leader was always really important. And I think all of us can think about how competitive we are. So think about, did you sell the most Girl Scout cookies? Did you basically everything you did? So being president of my class every year or president of the school was just something that I wanted to do, and I did, and is conflicted. But I remember my senior year is when I was president of my high school and president of my student youth group and president of another organization. My parents said, you need to see a psychiatrist because you've got no life, right? And so I said, okay, I'll go. So I basically went and I came home and said, I don't need to go anymore. And they said, why? And I said, because I'm your daughter.
I thought maybe you recruited the psychiatrist to do something. He works for me now. Interesting. So siblings, how many siblings in your family?
I have a brother, and he went into the women's clothing business.
Really?
Right? As opposed to me, who was really interested in volunteering for the Peace Corps and doing other social causes.
So everybody in your family was involved with Casual Corner. You worked at the store as well, and
Yes,
with your
I did.
where you were growing up. So how many stores did you start? You started with one in Atlanta?
Well, my mother and dad started about 22 of the stores, and then they met other, you talk about networking, other like people around the country, a lot of really wonderful Jewish families. So there ended up about 6 owners, and then they all sold out to the U.S. Shoe Corporation. But
Really?
It was fun seeing how that works on a systems basis.
So you learned a lot from that experience.
I did.
So going back to your high school experience and everything, you were president of your class, and so how did you get this personality to be this
But
way?
you learn a lot, right? In other words, I was the youngest cheerleader in my high school, in the 10th grade. But I think I must have gotten arrogant because in the 11th grade I wasn't reelected, and that was a big blow for the varsity cheerleading. And I remember a teacher took me aside and said, if you really want to be a leader, you've really got to suck it in and learn to be very humble. And you need to go out for junior varsity. And I was thinking, this is really a difficult thing to do, but I did it, and I went and cheered for the junior varsity after being a varsity, and next year got president of the school and varsity.
So I think this is one of those moments where we take a pause and we go, did we hear the lesson we just learned here? The leadership also involves humility. And that's one of the reasons we do Chick Chat, because sometimes there's that little gem of learning that happens here. So it was humility and a learning lesson you probably needed to have to prepare you for what was coming in your life.
Totally.
Interesting. So varsity, demoted to junior varsity, but you had a great teacher. That was good of her.
I say that about life, and I think we all share that, is you can take 2 steps forward, but everybody falls back a step, and whether it's business or personal, but you got to propel yourself that next 2 steps forward.
And I think it was compelling you had a teacher who took the time to give you insight into that. I think it was a huge lesson for you in your life.
Sure, but that's happened a lot, all right? I remember in my 20s, I set up an international women's, I set up a foundation, but I also set up an international media exchange, and I talked to Walter Cronkite and asked him if he would chair the effort, and he said he would, and he asked me to fly to CBS in New York. And so I was so excited. So I ran into CBS, and he said, Edie, sit down, because I'm going to teach you something. He said, I'm not going to do this. I've really thought hard about it. But I'm going to teach you about commitment, because you will lead, and what you need to do is only pick the things you're going to give 100% to, because I can't give you the time. It's an election year, and I can't do it. But you have to learn that in your life. Go for things you can give 100% to.
Another huge lesson. So sometimes, and even if you have to step back from a commitment you made because you need to honor the other commitments you have, what incredible lessons you're learning on the way through life.